E-bikes. They're getting a hotter and hotter topic each and every day. Is this the perfect, good, all-terrain electric bike on a budget? It's called Ado D30C, and you're right, let's inspect. Hey, good to meet you everyone, it's Chech for All. Back on two wheels, it feels great. So that's the first e-bike I'm trying out for 2022. Comes from Ado, the model D30C, which promises a lot. 27.5-inch tires, 90-kilometer range per charge of the battery, and really decent performance. I really enjoy this frame, which kind of makes the battery almost entirely hidden. But how about the details, and is it really that good for less than $1,500? This is what we're going to find out. And by the way, if we see each for the first time, pleasure is all mine. I'm Michael, and over here we inspect fresh and cool tech, so let's go further. Ado D30C has just launched when I'm doing this review and still has pretty limited stock around, but I guess it will become something like a standard for good e-bikes this year because of the excellent overall set of components. Yes, it does have its weak points, but there definitely are a whole lot of things to like about it. It costs a little more than most similar-sized competitors, which given the components used is quite understandable. It is good $1,000 less than the famous Cube Reaction, which happens to be among the most accessible bike models with electric mid-drive hub. The only models that come close to this setup, price-wise, at least in Europe, are some of the Decathlon-made e-bikes. So, as usual, unboxing. I promise you're gonna be really surprised here, so was I. All started just normal. A big heavy box weighs around 32 kilos, kind of the usual experience so far, but this is clearly something I wasn't expecting. Holy cow, the bike is sealed in foam shell. I guess the plan was to make the transportation as safe as possible. So make sure to be prepared before unboxing, because you're gonna generate a serious amount of dirt around you, and these little pieces, just make sure to not do this outdoors on a windy day. Apparently the whole process took me much longer than an average bike unboxing, but main goal here is accomplished and everything has arrived safe and sound. I can't say this is a very nature-friendly way of doing it, but since it's rather cheap and actually worked, I can only praise Ado for protecting their gear that well. The setup process is very straightforward. First, patiently get rid of most protective covers. Then you need to mount the handlebar, install the front tire, check the pressure of both, install the seats, put on the pedals and possibly charge the battery to full. I've done similar activities quite many times already, but this here took me a while. I really would recommend to check the joints and the tightness of most screws, just in case. You don't want to see a loose component ruining the fun. I think we can agree that, at the first sight, this bike not only looks good, it is gorgeous, and with some not too expensive upgrades it could turn into a hardtail beast. Because just hear about the specs. A 250-watt motor, which converts into 42.5 Nm torque, 27.5-inch wheels, up to 90km assist range, a 9-speed Shimano transmission, hybrid drive system developed by Ado, hydraulic disc brakes, front fork with 100mm drive controllable, innovative design of the frame, fantastic LCD display visible in direct sunlight, and total weight of around 22 kilos. So, in terms of specs, it actually sounds really promising. Interestingly, Ado, unlike most of the Chinese bike makers, do not really include the cheapest entry-level materials. Quite the opposite, they give you quite decent equipment inside, which is definitely not expensive, but very good balance between price and performance. And this really is the good part. Well, you have 27.5-inch tires, which is kind of the standard these days, especially for most e-bikes, especially for those which are rather on a budget. And the frame, which is amazing. This is a detachable battery. The crankset, I think it's a bit bigger than what it is supposed to, but the fact that we have an Altus derailleur actually makes shifting through the different gears a lot easier. And I think out of all the components, the most important part, this motor is 250 watts, which means it's within the EU regulations, and this is full pedal assistant, meaning it's entirely compliant with most of EU countries, and that's really great. If you wonder about the separate components and their performance, let me bring some more clarity. I'll start with the most important ones, the drive and the battery endurance. We count here on a 250-watt motor in the rear wheel. Advantage of this motor is the simplicity, the performance and the reliability. Obvious drawback is the weight distribution, and the fact that you have most of the weight on the rear means that you're gonna be limited in some situations, especially going downhill, but gives quite good grip when you are going uphills. The motor produces torque of close to 42 Nm, which is a solid boost to your pedaling. I'm not sure about the support values, but based on my testing, the defaults are rather okay. At gear 0 there is nothing happening, just the motor is at standby. This is a nice to have option because older Chinese e-bikes have no such gear and you either have assistance all the time or you have to entirely shut down the system in order to ride it as a regular bike. Gear 1 supports up to 15 km per hour, then you have Gear 2 where we have a bit more power and support up to 20 km per hour, and the third gear goes to the maximum. Now, there is the option to go to the display's advanced config and enable the so-called hybrid drive system, which by choosing mode 5 enables the pure electric drive, which doesn't require pedaling and is gonna be something that you should check if legal at all before really doing. I can only praise the display. It is exactly how an e-bike display should be, visible at all times, because we know that often this is not the case with other displays. A whole lot of information, you can easily switch between the different modes using the buttons and enter the advanced menu if you really know what you're going to do. The S830 is a well-known controller, easy to get spare parts and plenty of documentation around. Only remark that I have is that sometimes you need to make 2 full cycles in order the motor support to kick in. Clearly something done with the idea to preserve battery life, but I do prefer the motor to step in a little quicker. The battery itself is another positive point. I think the main advantage here is its removable design. You need the key, then simply unlock and bring it to the charging station. Makes the bike great for going to the office because you can park it whenever you want and charge at a totally different location. I still have no good estimations about the endurance because of the very low temperatures. Easily covering 10 kilometers, slightly uphills, and this consumes around 20% battery juice right now. They say 90 kilometers are possible at 15 kilometers per hour speed, flat road and 70 kilo rider. So I guess for a 188 centimeter guy with 90 kilo weight including the backpack, it may be up to 70 in conservative mode and going in the mountain around twice less than that. Talking about the riding comfort, the front fork is actually good. It's an air-based fork with 100mm drive. I had to adjust it a bit, but responsiveness is a lot better than what I expected. It's so far the best I've seen on a Chinese e-bike, so well done by Ado. The brakes are the other nice surprise. You do have hydraulic brakes that don't even squeak. They clearly are not on par with the market-leading solutions, but for the budgets, they do a great job and braking effectiveness has been superb all the time. Here the goal is reliability and is well achieved. The 9-speed derailleur is by Shimano. We have here the Altus edition, so again, Ado didn't go for the cheapest option, and they also bring a shifter that is very efficient and at the same time balanced in terms of budget. Switching between gears is not that noisy and is very responsive. The tires, they're probably the only part that you can kind of change or upgrade easily. 27.5 inches is the standard that most of the e-bikes anyway support, but you can clearly go for bigger and off-road oriented tires. Here we have an entry-level edition of tires, which seems to be the choice for most Chinese e-bikes these days. You can think of converting to tubeless as well. Yeah, it looks great, it feels great, and I've clearly had a lot of fun with this e-bike and I'm totally happy with the way it performs. And as usual, I've been keeping a list with things that may seek for improvement. For instance, the seat post is a little too short for my taste and height, meaning that if you're taller than 180 centimeters, you're gonna need a longer one. I'd go for a smaller crankset so that you have a more mountain-friendly drivetrain, and possibly also for an option to choose the size of the frame. Summary time. The Ado D30C is one of these e-bikes I can certainly recommend for the pack that it offers at the given price. Why? Because it's not the usual entry-level components that you get from most Chinese e-bikes. Quite the opposite, very balanced solution, and in a matter of fact would be a really good starting or mid-performing hardtail e-bike right now in 2022. And even given all the shortages and the price spikes, I think it maintains very attractive price. Interesting to see what you guys and girls think. Is the D30C a decent choice? Do you have any better suggestions? And generally anything you have to say, please do comment in the section below the video. I'm Michael, and as usual it's been such a pleasure to have you on the channel today. More tech inspections coming, and of course a few more e-bikes in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. See ya!